Hello everyone, I'm Verawak, and today we're going over 5 tips for starting out in Rogue Tower. So we'll start off immediately. Tip number 1, money, money, money. So we all know money makes the world go round, and it's also the most important thing for you in this game. The more money you have, the more you can build and do. There are 2 really great ways to increase your money generated. The first one is actually in cards that you can unlock. So it's called banditry. There's 3 different cards you can unlock. The first one increases the amount of gold that each enemy drops by 2. The second one by an extra 2. And the third one by an additional 2 again. The only downside is that if an enemy reaches your tower, you take more damage. Overall, it's worth it because you want more money so you can have more towers so you can prevent enemies from getting to your tower. The second method is to place towers on the sides of every house that you can. This is because at the start of each level, you get money equal to the level times the amount of towers around the house. There are up to 4 sides to a house, so you can have maximum 4 towers around it. But you have to make sure that they're all on the same elevation. If they're not, then the house won't be affected by that tower. It might not seem like much at first, but it does add up. Tip number 2, priorities. Priorities are very important in the sense that it lets you target strong mobs instead of just focusing on the front one. Priorities also determine what type of damage that tower will be gaining XP for. If a tower targets an enemy that currently has shield, it'll gain shield XP. If the enemy has armor, it'll gain armor XP, and if the enemy has health, it'll gain health XP. By knowing this, you can change a tower's priorities to be targeting shields so that tower levels up its shield damage. This also lets you maximize your damage depending on which tower you're using. Flame towers are great against armor, so prioritizing most armor would be a good idea. This isn't to say you should never target health or shield with a flame tower, but it's a great way to start out. Tip number 3, higher elevation. So when you're placing a tower, the higher elevation it is, the more range and base damage it gets. So whenever you hover over a location, it'll show you how much increase in range and base damage will be applied. To get the most powerful tower for the same price, it's best to place it, you guessed it, higher if possible. So the only times I actually place a tower on the ground level is when I surround a house, because houses are always on the ground level. Otherwise, I always try to prioritize placement on the highest points possible. Later on in the map, you can actually get +4, +5, and even +6 if you're lucky. That is a huge boost in damage and range. Tip number 4, passive leveling. So it might seem a bit strange, but overall, it's best to let the towers passively level instead of investing gold into manual upgrading. It's usually better to build more towers than to spend gold on them. So there are exceptions when doing challenges of only one type of tower, but when starting out, don't upgrade unless you absolutely have to. I mean, if it looks like a lot of enemies with shields keep getting through your setup, you can either change the priorities on some of your towers to focus down shields, or spend a bit of gold and level up the shield damage for the towers that are targeting shields. Tip number 5, get the dots. And by dots, that means damage over time. And in this game, there's 3 different kinds. There's bleed, burn, and poison. Enemies with bleed will not regenerate health. Enemies with burn will not regenerate armor. And enemies with poison will not regenerate shield. Also, each dot does normal damage against its corresponding health, armor, or shield, and only half damage to the other. So for example, an enemy with 100 bleed will take 50 damage per second to its shield, 50 damage per second to its armor when there's no shield left, and 100 damage per second to its health when there's no armor and shield left. So I always try to have all 3 dots applied for level 20, since the enemies start regenerating everything around then. So if you have a huge stretch of no towers for some reason, they're just going to regenerate it all and it's going to be pointless. Well, there you have it. That's 5 quick tips for Rogue Tower. This is more beginner tips, I would say. There's a lot more tips that you can have, but it gets to be more complex, I would say. So when first starting out, try to follow these and it'll help you. And let me know if you'd like to get more tips for perhaps more advanced situations. It does take a while to beat one path, and then once you do that, you get to the second one and the third one. The third path does get very difficult. So you can put all these tips into practice and it'll help you win. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Verawak. Let me know what your favorite tower is. I personally really like poison sprayers. They are just great. Just with the slow, definitely thinking of trying a 3-path only poison towers. It might be really good. Possibly Lookout Towers. I hope you enjoyed the tips and I hope they help you get your victory.